The .NET Core podcast is supported by our listeners who have become patrons. To see a full list of the patrons, or to join them, head over to .NETCore.show/patrons. Hello everyone and welcome to the .NET Core podcast, an award-winning podcast where we reach into the core of the .NET technology stack and, with the help of the .NET community, present you with the information that you need in order to grok the many moving parts of one of the biggest cross-platform multi-application frameworks on the planet. I am your host, Jamie GaProgMan Taylor. In this episode, I talked with Iris Classon about her book, The Unlikely Success of a Copy-Paste Developer, and what she's been up to since she was last on the show, back on episode 24. As well as discussing Iris's new book, we talked about some of the lessons that we've had to learn during our respective careers, including pulling a GitLab and deleting all of the data from a production server. I really think that you'll enjoy this episode as we approach these very scary subjects with a lot of humour and goodwill, and pointed out the places where we can all learn and grow as people. So let's sit back, open up a terminal, type in .NET New Podcast, and let the show begin. So, the first thing I'd like to say, Iris, is thank you ever so much for being back on the show. It's been ages since you were back on. Episode 24. For context, this is going to be episode 99.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, so it's a long time. So welcome back on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back.
Hey, I mean, it's great to hear from you. I was just saying in the pre-recording bit that we do, we'd recorded our episode and then the world went a bit wobbly. So that's it, like,
it sort of has again, but let's not.
Yeah, let's not try to dwell on those things, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I hope everything's going well. Are you well? Is everything happy? Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of things done during the pandemic. Got ourselves another kid because, we're just like punishing ourselves. We got ourselves another kid. We got married, bought a house. Wrote a couple of books, and that's it. But that's a lot, though. It was a busy year.
Oh, well,
that was all within 1 year.
That's a lot more than I did during the last 3, I can tell you that much. If you want to know what I did, I sat on the couch and ate crisps. That's what I did.
Well, I saw this advertisement in Germany that they said, these are our national heroes. People not going out during the pandemic.
Oh my goodness. But now I've got to pay for it all because I've got to get up and do yoga every day, go for a run every couple of days. I tell you, I'd much rather be sitting on the couch eating food. But
do you like running?
I used to. But now, for people who know me in real life, I don't look like a runner, but I used to run maybe 6-7 miles every 2 or 3 days.
Oh,
because
nice.
Where I used to work, this was like 5 or 6 years ago. No, it'd be longer than that. It'd be about 10 years ago. We all used to go for a run at lunch together. So we'd all down tools, get changed, go for a run, come back, and then have lunch together. And that was really good because it really forced me out because you sort of naturally sort of buddied up with a bunch of people. And that was really good because everyone was like, hey, come on, you can do it, Jamie. I'm like, I can't, I'm dying. And they're like, you've just walked outside, dude. You've not even started running yet. But yeah, I used to. I don't so much now because I don't need to go anywhere now. That's the problem. And I have no accountability buddies. So maybe I need some accountability buddies.
Because we started working from home basically the minute it came to Sweden. We didn't even wait. So I had worked at this new workplace called Greenbyte, officially now called Power Factors, for approximately 3 weeks before we started working from home. And I got myself a walking pad. So been walking, meetings, and then I got used to that, and I started walking while I was writing code, which sounds a bit insane, but it's interesting what your body can adapt to. So the walking pad has become a very dear friend.
if I had the room to stand up whilst I was working, I'd get one myself. But it's a very low roof in here.
Yeah, that wouldn't be so ergonomic, would it?
Not so much. I mean, I'd be sort of hunched over. That's the problem, right?
You get like little tiny pedals underneath the table.
Now, that I could do. I know that my brother has one of those. He has it because he gets sciatica. He has this thing to put under his desk, and it just has pedals on it, and he just sits and pedals all day. So maybe I should get one of those. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I just shouldn't be so lazy. That's what it is. But anyway, we're not on the show to talk about how lazy I am, although I could talk about it all day.
See, that's what you get. You know, I'm a personal trainer and dietitian, so don't get me started on that. I'll shut up about that now. See, I'm trying so hard not to swear. For those who didn't hear the previous podcast, I used a word that means poop, but apparently it's a really bad swear word in the UK, so I was beeped instead, and it sounds so much worse. It sounds like I said like the C word, or I don't know what. It sounds really, really bad. So I'm trying so hard not to say the poo word, because it's used a lot here, because in Sweden it's not a big deal if you say it. So I'm trying so hard.
Sure. Well, I mean, it's a difficult job that we do, and you know, let's be honest. When I introduce myself to new people, or people who are new to me, they always say, "Well, what's computer programming like?" And I said, "Well, I get paid to drink loads of coffee and swear at a computer all day. That's what I get to do." And is that not what we do?
It is.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. But Iris, I was just wondering, for folks who haven't heard the previous episode, because you brought it up just then, and I've mentioned it earlier on, would you mind giving everyone just a really quick introduction? You've said there already that you have the history of the personal training and the dietitian, and we talked about how, you know, we're both developers and all that kind of stuff. But I was wondering, just maybe an elevator pitch, 30 seconds, a minute, whatever, that kind of thing.
Who I am,
really
what I do.
On the spot now. Yeah. Really putting you on the spot now.
Oh, I nearly said the word. Oh, darn. I can say that instead. All right. Iris Classon. I used to work as a personal trainer and a clinical dietitian. Turns out it's not as fun as I thought it would be. So I decided to try something completely different. Just randomly decided on learning programming. Had no idea what I was doing. Turned out it was my dream job. Absolutely love it. Being a Microsoft MVP since my second year as a software developer. I think it's on my 10th year soon. And now lately I've decided I'm going to become filthy rich writing books, which I told Jamie is like aiming for the Olympic team, although you haven't really done any sports. Everybody knows you don't make money as an author, but I mean, I like crazy ideas, so why not? So that's what I'm doing. I'm still writing code, never going to stop writing code, but I'm also writing a few words now.
I feel like with your boundless enthusiasm, you are probably going to be the only person on the planet who makes money writing books. That seems to be the, like.
There are a few more, like Stephen King. I just listened to his book on writing, which is really, really good, very fascinating. He's sort of been a role model for me. Yeah.
I see. So does that mean the next book from Iris Classon is going to be a horror story?
Oh, no, God, I can't do it. I can't believe, like, I read all his books and I just couldn't stop reading them. But now the older I get, I just want to watch like funny stuff on TV and high school music type of movies, or high school movies, just cheerful, predictable movies where everybody's happy. So my writing style has become more, I like comedy. So I want to make people laugh. I was trying to write a really funny book, but apparently it's a little bit anxiety inducing as well. That was not the intention, but I'll embrace any emotions resulting from the book. Might be my own anxiety, probably is, because although I am not the main character in the book was definitely inspired by actual events, like 90% of it.
Well, I mean, let's talk about that. So you have this new book out now called "The Unlikely Success of a Copy-Paste Developer." For context, I've read it. In fact, I finished it only a few days before we recorded this, which is now in the past.
Oh, it took you that long to read it?
Yeah, it took several months. No, no. It was a really quick read for me. It was really good. I liked it. And partially because I'm looking through it going, I remember when that happened to me. I remember that. I remember this. I remember this happening. And it's not about me, but like there's bits in there that I'm like, yep, I get exactly what's going on here. I know exactly that's exactly what happened. This has happened. And, this thing and that thing. And, the way that certain people are reacting. I'm like, I know people like that. It made me worried about whether I'm a good person or not, but there you go.
I keep getting the question, like, is your husband in the book? And I also had a previous colleague asking me, am I in the book? And I was like, nah, the book is full of assholes. You didn't qualify. No, not assholes, like idiots.
Okay.
Right. But no, not necessarily idiots. But actually, a lot of the people are based on real people. A lot of the characters are based on real people. And I'm sort of worried that some of those might read the book and go like, what the... In particularly David. David exists.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. But David, when David reads the book, he's going to go like, yeah, I like David. David is the best. See, that's why it works so well.
Yeah.
He'll probably go around and tell everybody, I'm David. Have you read the book? I am David.
I like it. So just to put a little bit of context in there then. So what is the book about? So I mean, I've read it, right? So it's a leading question for me, but I'm giving you a chance here, Iris. Sell the book to the people who are listening. What's it about?
Well,
and is it real? Is it fiction? What's going on?
It's sort of fiction or more of like a documentary of my life. All right, what the book is about? Well, it's about a software developer, consultant, Leo, who, just wants to get some work done and then head home. Just an easy life, a bit of an introvert, a little bit of social anxiety, but everything sort of comes crashing down when Leo is told that all software developers, everybody has to help out with customer support. And obviously, if you're a software developer, you don't want to have any customer contact. So that is a nightmare. So Leo decides that an architect, that's what I'll become. Because the architects don't have to help with anything besides sitting on their throne and sort of just architect things. There's this guy, Michael, who talks about architecting like architects do. And there's some nipples involved as well. But Leo, trying so hard to become an architect, accidentally manages to make a repository public and becomes an overnight celebrity, and apparently an overnight celebrity within open source, which is not something for Leo. And it's just downhill from there.
I like it. Like I say, I've already read it, but yeah, that is a wonderful description of the book.
The description sounds a little bit random, but I promise it makes more sense.
I mean,
when you read it.
Those are the beats of the story. I have to say, you hit almost everything. I do like. So there's a number of characters. There aren't very many characters, which is good from my point of view, because I'm like, who did what now? What? You don't want to be in that position. I've read books in the past.
There are four main characters, and there are a total of 32 characters overall in the book. But there's one main character, and there are 3 supporting characters.
Yep. Yeah, I've read books in the past where it's like, hang on a minute, this person hasn't appeared for 50 pages. What were they doing? Yeah. And you have to you end up with flashcards and bits of string on the wall,
See, I can't do that. I cannot read books that start off with a map where everybody lives and then sort of like a dictionary. Thinking of a Game of Thrones looking at you and then Lord of the Rings. Oh, Lord. I mean, Lord of the Rings, there's so many characters. Did you notice that the ending actually took half an hour when they said goodbye to each other? That was half an hour because there's so many people and just saying goodbye to everybody was half an hour. I cannot do books like that. Hats off to the author writing them, but I just don't have the mental capacity to, if they're not on Facebook, and I get birthday reminders, I will forget them.
So you see, this is where I lose my geek card, nerd card, whatever. I've never read nor seen the Lord of the Rings books nor movies. I got half an hour into the first Lord of the Rings movie and fell asleep. I feel like everybody now has just gone unsubscribe, delete. Jamie's an idiot. Unfollow on Twitter. We don't want anything to do with him. I'll have to send my MVP award back. Nobody wants to know me anymore because I've just said that I don't like.
Well, I'll join you and I'll let everybody know that before I watch anything, I have to read the full plot on Wikipedia episode by episode. And then I'll decide if it's worth watching. I'll even read all the reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, preferably Rotten Tomatoes. And if it sounds good, then I'll watch it. But what about the suspense? I don't need it. I mean, the suspense is, does it match up with my fantasy? When I read the description, the plot, did it actually happen like that? And to not ruin it for my husband, I don't tell him. I just sound really smart and go you know what I think's going to happen now? Did you notice that? So, yeah.
So I've done that in the past just because I've seen that many movies, but I've never actually thought to read the Wikipedia or summary or something and then sit there and go, I wonder what, oh, there they go. And then just start telling people what's going to happen.
Yeah. And people
That'd be so good.
Wow, how did you know? It's I know. I'm literally holding the phone in my hand. It's the big iPhone, the one that's the size of my face, and just says plot episode 2. And I'm looking there. It's I don't know. I'm just guessing,
I like it. Oh dear. So one of the things I really liked about the book is, it feels like some of the characters, at least the supporting characters, feel a little bit caricature-y. But like you said, some of them are very real.
Yeah. Michael is a combination of a lot of different people. And I haven't actually had somebody rub their nipples in front of me.
What a sentence to have said. I mean,
not at the office anyway.
I don't know what to say, Iris. Good night, everybody. But so Michael is the architect, right? And and there's something about, there's a flashback to when David and Leo are interviewing Michael. Yeah. And Michael's come in and he's like, "Yeah, I'm the architect and I'm the best." And there's some wonderful exchange there. And I've met people who are exactly like Michael. And if you'll allow me to just use one line from the book.
Yeah, please do.
Which is, David says to Michael, "How do you debug software?" And he says, "I don't put bugs there in the first place." And I'm like, I know so many people just like that.
Yeah, that was an actual interview.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, that was an actual interview. I was sitting there with the candidate, and I just couldn't get any real answers, and it was so frustrating. I was showing him a file, and it was older codes, a lot of static, I was like, static. I don't like that. I was like, okay, yeah, tell me, why don't you like that? Because it's smelly. And I was like, okay, what do you mean? Oh, it's a code smell. Smelly code. I was like, all right, so what would you do? Not that. Okay, but what would you do? And then he's got well, I just remove it. Remove what? Static. So you just remove the static modifier. yeah. I was like, can you like think of any consequences? I was like, nope. I was like, okay. I was like, it'll be less smelly. I was like, well, okay. And it was just such an absurd conversation.
I can imagine that it would have been. This is why I'm very against talk. So personally, I'm very against using principles as like hard and fast rules.
Yeah.
You can't, like, if somebody says to me, methods could be no longer than 7 lines long. I'm like, but what if it needs 8 lines? Right?
But there are algorithms. Oh, well, actually, you can have a really long line.
Exactly, right?
If you use ReSharper, it often suggests, would you like to liquify this? This is for C# developers. Would you like to liquify this? And you go like, yeah, show me what you got. And you go like, boom. And you got like a really long ass line that'll just go from here up to Stockholm in a roundabout and back, You go like, okay, yeah, one line.
Yep, that's great. The problem with the single line statements like that is that they're like, let's say you have a for loop and you're looping around some collection. That's relatively easy to read and understand.
Yeah.
When you fall into using LINQ, and there's nothing wrong with LINQ, I like to use LINQ from every now and again, but I also have to think about who else is going to read this code, right? And not just, is it a junior developer? Is it a senior developer? What about me tomorrow? Am I going to remember what this does?
Because
right?
It sort of sounds like, hey, if each person that goes to this school, everybody's going to do this, and then we're going to do that. It's like somebody just talking blah, 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 with a lot of like side stories, The person, that person that never finishes an actual story, and then at the end, return.
Exactly.
And you go like, return what?
Yep.
Like, what did you do? It's like, I don't know. I just... But yeah, but it's also very, very satisfying in a way, just being able to just write that, like some old scripture that nobody understands, and it just works, and nobody's going to touch it. And if you do git blame on it, you can't find who edited a specific section because it's just a long line, so you can hide. It's nice though.
So you're saying you're for those single line statements now, just because you can hide.
I'm a bit divided on it.
but I'm very personally, I'm very against someone coming in and saying this principle must be followed because it is set in stone. And I'm like, look, even the person who wrote that principle doesn't even use it 100% of the time. I'm going to bring up Uncle Bob, not because I'm following his politics, but because of his experience and the knowledge that he shares. And he talks about, well, you must always program to interfaces, and you must always write methods that are this long and no longer. And I'm like, but what if there is no interface? What if? Because I'm not saying I'm not saying don't do dependency injection and things like that. But sometimes, especially if you're doing something that's throwaway code that is going to be replaced tomorrow after the demo, you have it written down, you've got it signed by the project manager, this code will never get to production.
Yeah.
Well, if you need a quick fix, there's nothing wrong with just throwing in a new. Yeah, new is glue, but it doesn't mean that you can't do it, right?
Yeah.
You can totally go work around these principles if you know that the code is going to be replaced. And I'm all for whatever solves the problem, right? Because I've said it loads of times on this show and others.
I still find I can't say Uncle Bob. It's so weird, in particular as a woman. Robert, I still find Robert to be fairly pragmatic when you have a conversation with him. I think it's just his way of speaking, and when he writes the book, that it's like a very strong recommendation, and he sort of just assumes people are going to apply a little bit of thinking. But I think in particular, if you're new to programming, you're so desperate for just, there's just so much information to keep in your mind. So it's so much easier when you just have these strict rules that you can follow until you actually have to follow them. And with the interfaces in particular, now you get stuff like, okay, so I'm writing this class, and then you right click, extract interface. And you go like, why? Because we must have the interface. Why? because I really like Objective-C. No, I'm just kidding. But you just end up with the header interfaces. Does Objective-C still exist?
Yeah, Objective-C still exists. Yeah.
No,
that's fine.
I'm kidding. Like, is it still around? Do people know what I'm talking about? Or are they going is he working for a bank or something?
Who needs low-level languages these days? Just write everything in Swift. It's fine.
We just end up with a lot of header interfaces. And without, like, usually you can use the interfaces, obviously, for testing and so on. But I just see it so often that people just add them without any thought what they're actually going to do with them. Just add them just to add them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like I say, I'm not advocating against them, but like you say, it requires a little bit of thought of, do I really need to do this? And if I do, what are the consequences? Yeah. Not just I'll blindly follow this and I'll do this, that, and the other, because, a lot of people that I know will fall directly into, I must write object-oriented programming. And I'll say to them, yeah, but
that's not cool anymore. It's sort of cool. Like, yeah. I mean, it's a lot about fashion,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, when in the late 90s, I used to pluck my eyebrows, so they just looked like two pieces of string. And now the fashion is to have these humongous eyebrows, sort of drawn on like with Sharpie pen. And the same thing is with code. There's fashion, and it seems to be changing faster and faster. And right now, I can't say that C# is a purely object-oriented language anymore. It's a mixture of a lot of things. And if you look at the feature requests, I don't know where we're going. There's a lot of things happening.
It's an interesting one.
And a lot of the things that were really appreciated are like inheritance. Mm-hmm. That's like, do we still do that? Or is that sort of a bad thing now, right? Isn't it?
I honestly don't know. I can't keep up with Twitter and its opinions.
Yeah.
But yeah, but it's the same. It's like, when people say to me, when they're really dogmatic about something, must do it this way. And I'm like, well, why? Right? No, I'm not trying to be contrarian. Explain to me why.
Yeah, you're supposed to ask why 5 times. The 5 whys. Yeah. Let's try that. Ask a question.
Yeah.
No, ask me a question and we'll do the 5 whys.
So it needs to be object-oriented.
Why?
Because then it will be object-oriented.
But why?
Because then I can do dots on everything and it's so easy. It's all encapsulated.
But why?
Because then I can take what I think the thing needs to do and put it all in one place.
How many? I have 1 why left, right?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Why?
Because I was told to do it that way.
You forgot to say it's supposed to resemble the world, which is full of objects, right? Something like that. Right. I don't know.
Yeah, but then you see, that's the thing, right? You can look at the world with an object-oriented point of view and say, this is a thing. These are the properties that define its thingness. Or, and I feel like I'm going to go a bit philosophical here, you could think of the world in a functional way. This is a thing and this is what it does. And this is how it changes the world. Or rather, this is how it changes the thing that it's talking to, but doesn't change the world, right? And you get into all sorts of crazy points of views. Or you can even think of things as procedural. I pull on the handle and push the door open, and then I walk into the door. Not I send the message, rotate the handle to the door object, then I send the message push to the door, then I send the message lift to my left leg and start walking forwards, right? You don't have to think of
excuse me, I door?
Okay, yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, it should have been I door. You're right.
The I door has an I handle. And the I handle only accepts a maximum of 7 I keys, okay? Right? No more than 7 keys, okay?
Yep. And the handle is I rotatable.
Unless it's a static singleton manager helper utility. I was going to say service, but the service should not be static.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know what is this podcast about?
But yeah, so
the interview. Yes. The interview.
There we go. But yeah, I think that there's a part in the book where Leo takes this. You said it earlier. Leo takes this repository of work, puts it out on GitHub, and makes it open. And then there's this whole section about. Well, yeah, okay, yeah, by mistake. But there's this whole section about the anxiety, not just of I've made the mistake and made it open source and pushed it out to the world, but also this: what if someone comes along and starts poking at it and saying you've got this wrong or you've done this wrong? Yeah. And there's this whole section about there's a person who's sending in pull requests, and they're very critical. They're like, hey, you've made a typo here and you've made a grammatical mistake there, and it's like,
yeah, like really neat picking. And I have to admit, that's a little bit of me. I still get so nervous about pull requests. We have a Slack channel at work where all the pull requests are automatically added to the Slack channel. And I know nobody follows that channel. They probably even remove the notifications for it because it's very, very busy. But I still have this anxiety that people, other people than my colleagues will actually go and look at my pull request. Like, I'm a fairly decent software developer, but I still get massive anxiety with pull requests. It's just, it's like doing a technical interview over and over and over again.
Hello, everyone. I am very sorry to interrupt this episode of the show, but I wanted to ask a favor of you all. As you will have known by looking at the podcatcher you're listening to this on, episode 100 of the show is coming up really quickly. And I'm having an AMA, or an Ask Me in Anything, to celebrate. To collect questions, I've set up an AMA page on the website over at .netcore.show/2022-AMA. That's dotnetcore.show/2022-AMA. .netcore.show/2022-AMA. If you have any questions on .NET and any of the related technologies, podcasting, or literally anything else, head on over to .netcore.show/2022-AMA. I'd love to add your question to the episode, but the only way to make sure that it gets added is for you to submit it in time. We do have a cutoff point, and that is June 1st, 2022. So get your questions in quickly, and I'll make sure to put a link into the podcatcher you're listening to this on, so you don't have to make any notes or anything. Just press through on the podcatcher and type up your question. Anyway, back to the episode. I really appreciated that you put that in the book, because I feel like if I feel it, and you've said you feel it, that means that there's at least 2 people in the world that feel that anxiety, which means there must be more.
Oh, yeah.
And so I really appreciated that you put that there, just to say, hey, don't worry. It's almost like you're saying to the reader, you will feel this way, but guess what? Come with me for the rest of the story, and you'll see that hopefully it's not going to be that bad, right?
Yeah.
Because I feel like when you first start working, if people work in open source, and Leo does this accidentally, but when you work in open source, or when you work with other people, and it's up to those other people to decide whether your code is good enough, there really is that anxiety, like you say.
Yeah, it is.
Oh gosh, what if I've done this single line statement and it should have been a for loop? Or what if someone's going to go, hey, you failed your pull request because you didn't run resharper, and you've got loads of statics and you didn't use the interfaces and all that kind of stuff. And then you worry that you look like, well, I worry that I look like an idiot. Then I'm like, oh gosh, I can't believe I didn't do this, or oh gosh, I can't believe I didn't do that.
One advice I can give to people listening, like if you want to get started with open source, good repositories to start with are actually Microsoft repositories. They have very strong guidelines regarding how to be respectful and so on. And I found them to be very gentle and positive. And that's been a really good experience. You can usually there's usually this tag called up for grabs. There's even this website, isn't it called upforgrabs.net, where you can, based on different filters, find repositories that you can contribute to, that with issues that are for beginners, like open source beginners, or maybe even programming beginners. It could be just formatting stuff, or just doing, adding comments and then removing comments and then adding them back in. Or I don't know, just extracting a lot of interfaces. There are different types of up for grabs issues that you can start with. And the repositories that have up for grabs usually are also quite helpful and not so judgmental about your pull request.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I absolutely agree. There's, especially if even if you don't do the Microsoft repositories, if you find a wonderful repository that will allow you to make these up for grab tags, I use Visual Studio Code for a whole bunch of stuff, not for programming, but mostly for documentation. And there's a wonderful extension pack that Microsoft have put out for Visual Studio Code. I think it's called the Docs Authoring Pack. So that's DOCS Authoring Pack. And when you install that, you get like a linter for Markdown. You get a spell check. You get loads of really good stuff that's useful for that. And if you're working on some of especially the Microsoft documentation, they recommend you install that first. And then one of the tasks could be pull the repo and just fix any of the problems that the extension comes up with, and then submit a pull request, right? Mm-hmm. And that's not like you're not doing. It's not like you're sitting around not doing anything.
As long as you don't do what I did. Oh, must add this to the next book. I am so incredibly stupid. I was reading documentation. It was like some Azure stuff, and I always get it in Swedish, although I always prefer English. But it was so horribly translated. So I had it's super passive, non-passive aggressive pull request where I made all the necessary changes to make it look like somewhat decent Swedish translation. And I had several people from Microsoft involved trying to get the pull request approved. And it took weeks. It was a lot of work. And then it turns out it was machine translated. So it wouldn't even matter if it was approved, because you just, automatically regenerate the really poorly. And just the translation was, have you ever done captions when you've done Google Meet? Mm-hmm. It's that level. So it's just some absurd, some really naughty words as well.
Oh, right.
Because we love double words in Swedish. A book writer, you write it as a book writer as one word. So we like to just smash words together. But he hadn't done that. When you don't do that, it just has a completely different meaning. And I'm so sorry for all the people I pulled into this passion project of mine to fix the Swedish translation, when it turns out the bad person was machine learning. So double check that before you do a pull request to fix automated translations.
It sounds like your next job is fixing automated translations. That's...
Yeah, I don't know how that stuff works, actually. It'd be really interesting to know, because it was pretty bad.
I would guess that there would be a Markov chain involved somewhere. I know that a lot of transcription stuff is Markov chains. Mm-hmm. So we'll figure out the first word or a couple of words and try and find the context of the sentence. And then it will use essentially guessing to say, well, in 90% of the times when you say the and it's about a car, you're going to say car next. So I'll just put car there and see what happens. Right. And then it takes that car and says, well, 90% of the times when you say car, you're going to say the color of it. So I'll find the color in the sentence and put that there. And so it's amazing that just most transcriptions are it blows my mind how they work. Yeah, at least that's my understanding.
That's the thing. The problem with the translation or translation to Swedish is that we don't have a lot of technical terms in Swedish. We use actual English terms, but they were trying really hard to, generate new ones. Or they would just assume there would be a Swedish word and they would just take it, even though it means something completely different. So I think it was something about peak domains. And it was just, yeah.
Oh my goodness. But yeah,
I come up with all the stories for the book, like stuff that I've experienced. And I don't know if I'm just really good at ending up in weird situations and meeting strange people.
I mean, you've met me and I'm strange, so.
Oh yeah, you're definitely in the next book.
Yep. Oh, thank you very much. Now I'm sitting here going, oh my goodness, am I David?
Nah, not David. There's only one David.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, so like, so what I really liked, I mean, I've said this a lot, but I really, really liked the frank and honest way that you told Leo's story. There's a point in the story where Leo does something very bad, or rather it does something, it doesn't realize that it's a bad set of steps and gets into loads of trouble. And I think that for a lot of people, they get very worried about, if I push this button, what will actually happen? You know, there's two types of people, right? There's the techno fear, which is, oh my goodness, if I push this button, the world will explode. And the other type of people, the techno joy, where they go, I want to explode the world. And it's like, I feel as though at least a lot of the developers I know fall on that techno fear side of it, especially the first time that we're ever doing anything big. And we're like, yeah, but if I push this button and it deletes the server, won't I get in loads of trouble? Well, yes, essentially.
It depends on who you work for.
Well, yeah, that's true.
I did try to coin a new term called to GitLab something. And I would say I really, really like GitLab. And it's a reference to when somebody at GitLab accidentally did a recursive delete on the production service. And they actually, so they recovered all the servers and live streamed it on YouTube, and people like eating popcorn and watching it for like 2 days. They were like, okay, here comes next team who's taking on the night shift, and continued. And they did a lot of questions like, would you fight 100 cats or would you fight 12 dolphins? It was actually really fun to watch. I think the stream is still up, the videos are still up, and I really like how they managed it. And I think they probably grew in popularity afterwards. The person was not fired, which I think is really good, because if somebody has that kind of power and that kind of access, well, I mean, accidents are going to happen. So. Yep. And, you know, perhaps that's a failing on how the system was set up, right? You know, if people, like when my clients come to me and say, we want you to go onto the live server, and I'm like, no, one has access to the live server. That's how that works. Live server is, there's like a wall around it, and to get in, you need to not get in. That's how that works. No one should, in my opinion, access the live server. Yeah, but in real life, like most places I've worked, every single person has access to the server. It's like, can you just go and delete that from the data? You know, like everybody has access.
And when everyone has access, no one has access, right? Because then there's no accountability. Because most likely, as is mentioned in the book, you're all sharing one user account.
Yeah. So, how do I log in? Oh, it's admin and the usual password. Oh, is it the one with the 1, 2, 3 at the end? No, we added exclamation mark to make it a little bit more.
It was in the email.
Yeah.
Don't email passwords, people. Oh my goodness. But yeah, I really liked that, how it was a super scary passage to read when Leo does something and does a GitLab, right? Yeah. When Leo does a GitLab, and it's really scary to read, because I'm seeing myself and I'm like, I remember when I did that.
Yeah. And Leo's actually trying to save another difficult situation that might have something to do about checking in sensitive information into repository.
But just the frank and honest way of saying, hey, this person is doing 2 things at once, and these 2 things are very difficult tasks, and one of them is an accidental whoopsie, and then that brings about another accidental whoops moment. it's the biggest accidental whoops moment you can have because the person wasn't concentrating on what they do, right? Because people make mistakes.
Yeah, and usually when you make a mistake, you sort of panic trying to fix it. And it's within that panic that you usually make another mistake. And I know that that's happened to me many, 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 many times. In particularly Git panics. When you're trying to sort out a merge, and you start getting frustrated, and you get anxious, and then you go like, force push.
Yep. I don't care. I'm the right one.
Yeah. You just cover your eyes like, oh, I hope this works. I hope this works.
If I don't see it, it's not happening. It's fine. I'll tell you real quick about the one that I did. And it wasn't even a work thing. I tend to have multiple hard drives in my computer at once. And this is when I actually, after this moment, I started looking into proper backup and storage of my important stuff. So I have multiple hard drives in my computer, and I'm like, you know what? I'm kind of sick of using Ubuntu. I'm going to try Elementary OS because I've heard it's really good. Put it on a USB, threw the USB into my computer and started it up. And I'm like, brilliant. Okay, try it. Yep, this is nice. I like it. Install. What I usually do when I install a new operating system is I open the computer up before I turn it on and pull the cables for all of my hard drives except the main drive. That day I didn't.
Oh.
Yeah. I had a local backup copy on another machine of all of my photographs taken throughout my life. I didn't on that main machine anymore.
Oh, no.
Don't do that, folks. But it was like, I got all the way through the installation. I'm like, yeah, this is great. This is wonderful. Wait. Why is Gparted still showing my Ubuntu install?
I mean, something similar happened with a friend of mine. So a friend of mine called me like fully on panicking, couldn't get Windows up and running, and he was really concerned he couldn't access his hard disk. And I was like, well, you could run Ubuntu on a USB stick and access your hard drive like that. And he was very eager to try this, so eager that he booted up before I had the chance to tell him to run it in memory.
Oh no!
You know, I was going.
Yeah,
It's like,
click install.
I was like,
fine.
and you ran it in memory, right? It's like, I'll talk to you later. So I just hung up. You know. Just...
Oh my goodness!
So yep, stuff happens.
Oh dear. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, right? We all make that mistake once. We all make the force push mistake. We all make
checking in secrets, passwords.
Yeah.
That was actually the first thing I did at my new job.
Right.
And I think it's like a ritual, because I just assumed that we wouldn't have that stuff in the repository to begin with. Mm-hmm. So I set everything up, and then when I checked in, they go like, "Oh yeah, did you exclude the config file?" I was like, "It's not in the git ignore." No, you have to do that manually. And I was like, "Wait, what?" And it's like, "No, I checked it in." I was like, "Oh, that's okay. Everybody does that. I'll just amend your commit." I was like, And now something I've learned that you can't really, once you've pushed something, it's there forever. So you always have to, we rotate, or not rotate, we call it rotate passwords. We actually change the passwords and keys very often. And this was not production, but nonetheless, once it's there forever. And I do believe that approximately 99.9999999% of developers at some point have checked in a secret or a key or something like that.
Yep. It's a rite of passage. You don't learn how not to do it until you've done it wrong once, right?
If you haven't done it, are you even a developer?
Exactly, right? This is why when I'm mentoring people, I say, right, first of all, just git add dot on, just do it now, and then commit it. Don't push it, but just do it, right? Okay, now to tell you, you've just committed your secrets. Okay, now we're going to learn about git ignore, right? And then that way they could do it in a safe space. That's what I try to do. Because, you know, you can then go, hey, look, okay, you've made a mistake. Let's talk about how to get out of that mistake, or let's talk about how not to do that in the future. Yeah. Which is really
the problem is with checking in now, password is that then if you check in the password, that's your one password, you know. Most people have this one password.
You do? Yep.
So then you need to go to all your social accounts, your email, your bank account, absolutely everywhere, and just change the password. Obviously, by just incrementing the last number, or adding another magical character. But that's the problem with pushing your passwords.
And if you haven't ever done it, I would recommend you do it. Go to GitHub, in the search box, type in something like revoking API key or revoking user secrets, and you will get millions of commits, because it doesn't just show you, because like you don't just search the code, it searches commit strings as well. So you get millions of commits where people are like, oh, I'm revoking this or I'm rotating this key. And it's because of that. So what I'm saying, everybody
so somebody, imagine that you accidentally push a password and then and you do a new commit removing the password, and you write in the commit message, removing super secret, very safe password.
Seriously. I challenge everyone who's listening. And Iris, when you get some time after we've talked, go to GitHub, hit the search box and type in removing API key or removing password. And there will be thousands of them. And I'm not saying this is in any way to make fun of those people, but to say, look, everybody does it. Like you said, everybody does it. It is a rite of passage. It is. Oh, it totally is.
It is totally fun because we've all done it. Like, I'm not saying people should do it, but it happens to the best and the worst of us. It happens, and I mean, you just gotta laugh at some things, just because it's so absurd how easy it is to mess up our job. Just one night, lack of sleep, or just a minor distraction. Just arguing with your spouse, or I don't know, having a kid who kept you up all night, and then there you go, just. One little commit and you've committed a sin.
Absolutely. It's easily done. And I think that's one of the things that I think is really important for everyone when they're learning. And I think it's something that comes up a lot in that it's a good lesson to take. If you take no other lessons, that it's a good lesson to take from this, from your book, is that everyone will make mistakes. It's not that big a deal, right? Yes, it causes some embarrassment, and yes, it can mean that you have to restore a backup, and yes, it means that you may get in trouble with the clients, but guess what? And I'm going to use a phrase, and I hate to use this one, but nobody died, right? Mm-hmm. Everything's going to be okay. Even if you get fired and you have to go find another job, guess what? There's another job out there for you. It's not, you live and you learn. The important bit is to be able to reflect upon that experience and go, do you know what? I messed up. I know exactly how I messed up. I know why I messed up, and I know how to fix it for next time so I don't do it. That's all that really matters, right? That's all I'm looking for.
And that's why we have pull requests.
Absolutely.
Because you want somebody to pick it up, the errors a little bit earlier, and also because then if something goes wrong, you have to share the blame. Absolutely, you've got an accountability buddy. Yeah, so you add somebody who's in on it. Absolutely.
I like it. Add somebody who's in on it. Have a little co-conspirator at work. I like it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Excellent. Okay then, Iris. So we've talked a little bit about, what I really like is we didn't just talk about the book. We talked about all of these other things that are not just .NET related, right? We talked about, should you follow the principles? We've talked about, committing and not worrying about making a mistake, which is something that's really important. In a previous part of my career, I was a teacher, and I used to tell people all the time. I worked as a high school maths teacher, and I said, don't worry about making a mistake. If you get it wrong, as long as, like I said earlier, as long as you can recognize you got it wrong and how you got it wrong and how you could maybe change it so that you get it right next time, that's all. That is learning. Yeah. Just knowing it is not learning. Getting it wrong and then recognizing how to get it right, that's learning. So let's do that. Let's not worry about getting it wrong. And I try to, I hope that there are enough developers like you and I, Iris, who are willing to sit with people and say, look, okay, let's provide a situation where you can get it wrong, but where there are no catastrophic problems, right?
Yeah.
And I genuinely think that almost all developers, in fact, all developers should go and buy in fact, no, I think that people who are not developers as well, like the David of this book. We keep saying David, right? David's like the PM, and they're the stereotypical PM. If you've ever seen Office Space, he is the guy who goes, yeah, you're going to have to come in on Monday, on Sunday, and Saturday. He's that guy, right? And I feel like if people have enough, wherewithal and enough self-reflection, they can see those behaviors and go, I can understand why my development team are really upset with me today.
I gotta say about David, he was supposed to be just a small side note, but he just took over. As I was writing, David just took over. And
like
honestly, it's what David does the best. It just takes over. And it's just weird because I had beta readers because I wanted to make sure non-techie people could read the book as well. Although it's very specifically for software or IT people. But even the beta readers, they really enjoy the book. And all of them just really hate-liked David. And I'm surprised because he wasn't supposed to be a big character in the book, but it just turned out like that. And yeah, they wanted more of him, more David.
More David.
Yeah, obviously Leo was very popular, but David was and another person, James. I thought James was going to be sort of sidekick and a really big character, but David outshone him, I think. Mm-hmm. Yes. And then Michael. Michael is Michael. Michael is just standing in a corner. So. Yeah.
And that's where we leave the episode.
Are you going to bleep that?
Maybe. I don't know. I'll leave you saying, are you going to bleep that as well? And then people will be like, I really want to know what Iris said.
No,
No, I won't.
So Michael was standing in the corner, his I'm just going to let you think about that for a moment.
Well, I was actually, so this bit will go out, but I was actually going to have it. Michael was standing in the corner beeping his beep. That's how I was going to have it. I would really. That's just me being silly. That, none of that will get in. But, okay, so I genuinely think that everyone should read this book because I think there's something in there for all developers to learn from. And like I said, there's loads in there about, I felt a certain empathy towards, I've known project managers who are like David. And I felt a certain empathy towards David because I could understand it from their point of view.
He's a scrum master,
Well, yeah, and he learns about Agile by going to an XP conference.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to leave it at that.
That's an actual story. That's
oh,
true.
Right.
Wow. Yeah. I had somebody write to me about this on Twitter. I can't give too much details.
Right. Okay. But yeah, so tell the people again about the, I guess, if you've got the book to hand, perhaps if you could tell the folks about the blurb on the back of the book, that'll give them a chance to get an idea about the book. Give them an idea of the name again, just so they can remember. I'm going
to see if I can find my blurb. Let me just Google myself. I'm actually going to Amazon and I go Iris Classon in books. In all departments. Oh, I exist in all departments. All right, I'm just going to read the blurb. Should I do it with a dramatic flair?
I mean, if you want to.
It's the hottest summer the UK has ever seen, and a lazy subpar developer is suffering from an existential crisis. Leo has been told that all developers must help with customer support, barring architects. But Leo has a plan, impressed with a quick fix to a big problem and consequently be promoted to God of Code, an architect. What Leo didn't plan on was making the code public and becoming an overnight sensation. What could possibly go wrong? Will Leo make it or break it?
Excellent.
Yeah.
And folks can order that on Amazon, can't they?
Yeah, right? On Amazon or directly through me as well. Yep.
Brilliant. Okay.
Obviously,
So-
you get a signed copy if you, or I'll just do a little doodle in a corner, and it'll make the book like double its value.
Absolutely. I mean, I have my signed copy
or
right
not.
here.
I think what did I write in your book? Did I write anything?
Yeah,
fun?
you wrote. Let's have a look. You wrote to Jamie. Thank you for the fun interview and podcast. I had a blast, and then you signed it.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I'll show you, but obviously the listeners won't
No,
see it.
I was trying to write funny things in every single. I think I ran out of funny things to write. I think I wrote somewhere, "I'm sorry for what I pushed to master when I was hungry," or something like that. Or, "I hate conflicts, so I always force push."
I like it. Excellent.
Something like that. And I just want to tell everybody who reads the book that Michael, not Michael, Martin, the dentist, is real. It's my dentist.
Right.
And the stories are true. Except the tunic. It was a towel. I'm just going to leave it at that. People don't believe me, but I have the emails.
For some reason, that makes it worse.
I just meet the weirdest people.
Fair enough.
I love my dentist, but I'm actually seeing a new dentist because my husband was a little bit uncomfortable with me going to Martin after he heard the stories.
Fair enough. Oh my goodness. Well, Iris, I just want to thank you for spending another, it's been more than an hour, but we've recorded for an hour. Thank you ever so much for being on the show again. I really appreciate it. The humor and the stories that you've brought. I think there's going to be so much for developers, regardless of where they are in their journey and regardless of the technology stack that they're using. There are stories here and humor and jokes that we've hopefully both told, but I don't think mine were funny. That will help people to sort of grow and become better developers. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you. Those are very nice words. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. I was going to say, can you tell that I practiced them? But that's an even worse joke. That's horrible.
I was going to make a joke, but I appreciate it. Just trying to add another interface before the podcast ends.
I like it.
I appreciate it.
I like it. Well, like I said, thank you ever so much, Iris. And thank you ever so much, and see you later.
Thank you.
That was my interview with Iris Classon. Be sure to check out the show notes for a bunch of links to some of the stuff that we covered and a full transcription of the interview. The show notes, as always, can be found at .netcore.show, and there will be a link directly to them in your podcatcher. And don't forget to spread the word. Leave a rating or review on your podcatcher of choice. Head over to .netcore.show/subscribe for ways to do that, or to reach out via our contact page. That's at .netcore.show/contact. And as always, come back next time for more .NET goodness. I'll see you again real soon. See you later, folks. The .NET Core podcast is a production of RJJ Software Limited.